We're ready to go.
Oh yeah.
How does it look on your end, Lucy?
Oh
Oh,
good, I
yeah?
think. Yeah.
Cool. What's good? Welcome back to the Other Side Cycling podcast, hosted by Lucy Mannall and myself, Patrick James Roldan. Hello, Lucy.
Hello, Patrick. It's just us today.
It is just us today. Today, we're doing things a little differently. Obviously, we're recording remotely. Lucy is, in fact, on the other side of Los Angeles from myself today. How are things over in Santa Monica?
It's all good. The sun is shining, which is not an everyday occurrence here. I haven't been outside yet today, but I can see and I can tell that it's beautiful. Can't complain. What about you?
It's it's definitely a gorgeous day out. It is 70 and just idyllic, no clouds in the sky. I'm looking out my window if you are watching the video version of this, uh, just to get a frame of reference for the actual conditions as we record. We're doing things a little differently today because I'm moving house, so it's a bit difficult to plan an episode around the constraints of that. But we wanted to record something and keep the momentum going and, still have a chat, this time with no guest. Maybe it's a great chance to give another shot at this remote episode thing. We have been having technical difficulties, but we won't get too deep into that. That being said, thank you to everyone watching the last couple episodes and all the episodes for the great feedback that we've been getting. A big shout out is deserved of the guests that we've had on because we can't do those great guest episodes without them. We've been really lucky to enjoy their company, and we're looking forward to doing more episodes with great guests soon. Lucy, do you think we should jump right into the segments for the week?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and if anyone has any suggestions of remote podcast recording software, please let us know because we're trialing out this one, but it doesn't seem to
Truly.
be as good as it says it is online. So if anyone has any
Uh,
suggestions or has experience of
yeah.
recording episodes remote in this setup, please hit us up because it's quite stressful.
So this week we'll get back into our standard format from downtown, the staples, and transplant talk. Kicking it off with the From Downtown segment, our chats about the state of the bike industry. There's been Grand Tours. It's no longer spring classic season. It is officially Grand Tour season. For those of you who watch the World Tour of Professional Cycling, we had the La Vuelta Femenina, the women's edition of the Tour of Spain, La Vuelta de España. Lucy, I know the timing is really hard for us to be watching these Spanish and European races in general. Have you been keeping up with the early morning, super early morning races at all? Or are we just catching highlights as usual?
Yeah, honestly, it's been more of a just catching the highlights sort of situation, sadly, which is, it's still good. And even in that situation, I haven't been watching as much as I would have liked to. But it's crazy that we're already in this Grand Tour season already. And the women's Vuelta has been and gone, and the men's Giro has already started. I will say the women's Vuelta absolutely did not disappoint in terms of action and talking points. So we have a couple that we want to talk about in particular, I believe. First one, just Demi Vollering being Demi Vollering. She absolutely dominated the race.
Animal.
I think it's been good to see her continued growth and success and dominance in the women's cycling scene. You know, she hasn't won every race this year, which is obviously absolutely fine. But any race that she kind of has won has been, you know, most of them have been in a pretty grand and kind of putting her stamp on that ride. Yeah,
Hmm.
it was interesting. I think in particular on stage 7, which was the last stage, there was a situation where her previous team, SD Works and Anna van der Breggen, were actually helping her out with some of the writing, which is incredibly interesting because Demi used to ride for SD Works, and there was a whole drama, whole saga around the fact that when she was racing for that team, her teammates didn't support her. There was a lot of internal politics in terms of who was the ride leader, who was the strongest, who was supporting who was riding for who. Very interesting to see that the tables had turned in that situation, and it didn't quite make sense, but very interesting talking points there.
Yeah, it's weird. You would expect that they would have, respect for their team leader. Um, we're specifically talking about the Tour de France Femme avec Swift from last year, where on the final stages they did not, they didn't support her endeavor to get the yellow jersey. She had to fight for the yellow jersey on her own, basically, and then lost it within, I think it was by,
4 seconds.
a couple seconds,
4 seconds, yeah.
time bonus seconds. Yeah, time bonus seconds on the final day to Kasia, which that's heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. It's just wild to see that they flipped the script, but what it took to flip the script was for her to not be on the same team. It's just really ironic. Um, but you know, Demi is an incredibly strong rider and has such a good head on her shoulders. But as a professional athlete, you never know what's going on in their minds. And I think this Vuelta Femenina was special for her. I think there was a very emotional post-race interview that went around because she basically did the ride regarding mental health, um, and people suffering from mental health emergencies, and uh, you know it can be debilitating to have the weight of the world on your shoulders. The quote was, "Not everyone wins the battle with their mind," and it's amazing to see what the mind can push you through physically. Not everyone has that strength. Um, so bringing attention to that is major. For her to ride with that in mind is kind of incredible. So he's been saying things like that all season as well, with a lot of the critique of Wout van Aert going around this year with kind of the woes of Jumbo Visma. I think Demi made a pretty strong statement on social media regarding that, about how, no one understands what Wout is going through.
Yeah.
And for us as, the peanut gallery, essentially, to just be viewing that and seeing his failures, and then, he's still one of the greatest cyclists of all time, and we're saying that he's washed. But, we don't know what's going on. He's come back from some absolutely, they would be career ending in any other space, right? Some injuries like that, broken, what is it, broken back, messed up knee. Uh, he had a really, really bad season last year. So for him to be taking podiums, not exactly winning, it's not unexpected
Yeah.
to not be on the top step, but it is incredible to have that resilience. Sorry, long tangent, but
Yeah,
you
and
know,
even linking to that, we've had the retirement announcement in the last couple of weeks from Caleb Ewan, which kind of came out of nowhere because he hasn't been performing at the same level that he once was. I mean, he's a sprinter, so that role is just so highly contested anyway. But he started off the season, I think in
one of the
January.
highest risk positions.
Yeah, he signed with Team Ineos, and it was kind of came out of nowhere, came out of the blue. But he seemed very happy. He seemed in a good place and stoked to be joining that team. He won a race, one of his first races in I think a couple of years. I might be wrong, but he won a race, which is obviously a great achievement. Super happy for him. We hadn't heard that much in the last couple of months. And then out of the blue, a couple of weeks ago, he just put out a post like, I've decided it's, time to hang up my cleats. And he kind of highlighted that even though he won a race, he wasn't getting that same buzz, that same feeling that he once did, like maybe towards the beginning of the career when he was racing and he was like, cool, I've won. This is a great achievement, and it kind of carried him through to the next win. The statement basically focused on how that feeling is kind of disappearing very, very quickly now. And he was like, I'm not getting the joy out of riding. I'm not getting the same benefits or the same kind of reward for doing what he did before. So super sad to see him depart the peloton, but also completely understand and understand where he's coming from, and also like hell yeah to him for such an amazing career, because despite having an off last couple of years, he has still a lot to celebrate, multiple Tour de France stage wins. I always enjoyed like watching his interviews and stuff, so all the best to him in his next chapter.
Yeah. Caleb Ewan silently has been one of my favorite cyclists in general because for me, I mean, you're watching this video, you see my skin, you see there's a level of ethnicity to me that isn't white. And Caleb Ewan doesn't, I don't think he ever really talked about what his heritage was, but I always viewed him as a compatriot of mine. Yeah, like I seeing his face made me feel welcome in the bike racing scene, made me feel confident that people who looked like me would be able to participate in that sport. He was the one guy who I could identify with as far as skin tone, and the style of riding that he would do. I'm not a really small statured sprinter, but I always liked his crazy bike fit position, his uh, you know, just his panache, his style of getting to the front. You could count him out on any given day, but he would be there when you least expected him to be. And but obviously when he wasn't, it was a real shock. So yeah, one of my favorite cyclists retiring. Definitely a sad day, but I hope his life improves and his family life improves, and I think Ineos gave him a great opportunity to end his career on a high note. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
The pocket rocket.
yeah, exactly. Speaking of riders on Giant of old, Tom Dumoulin,
My friend.
friend of the podcast, would we say?
Might be pushing
Yeah,
it,
your
but we'll
friend
take it.
Tom. He might be pushing it. He recently went on a podcast. I'm not sure if it was his own, but I read an article on Cycling News that cataloged Tom's very interesting thoughts regarding the state of women's world tour cycling. This is going back to Demi's dominance and the idea of Demi being Demi. But, he's Dutch. He's one of Demi Vollering's compatriots. He said that the Dutch dominance of the women's world tour puts the sport in a very interesting position. I think he spoke rather negatively about that kind of it's Anna van der Breggen, Marianne Vos, Leanne Lippert, uh, Demi Vollering winning every race. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there have been some Italians who have won, some smaller nations like Mauritius and Switzerland winning races this year as well. But I do see his point. It does feel like the top steps are pretty widely Dutch as of late. And I know that the season is young. There's still, 6 months to the year to check out, but it is very Dutch dominated at the moment. What are your thoughts on that, Lucy?
In a way, it's not a new thing to some extent, because, I'd say in the last 10 years, especially, there have been those big names both in women's and men's cycling, of that Dutch dominance. There's definitely something in the water over in that country, and also just the lifestyle and the upbringing that people have surrounding bikes. That attitude is reflected in that as well. But it is an interesting moment, I think, right now. Maybe we had a few more Brits kind of in the mix in previous times, maybe a few more Italians as well, but I like it. It's refreshing to some extent, like the fact that there are these new riders and new names in there. And I think, we will see the effects of this, or the results of this effect, probably in the next couple of years, because the more Dutch riders that we have now dominating, that's only going to encourage more young boys and girls and just Dutch people to get involved in the sport and have those people as their idols and want to be those people and follow that path. So, yeah, I think when there is a big group or a big theme here, it only reflects positively.
Yeah, I wonder if it will inspire other nations' national programs to take up the ranks to see if they can start dominating the sport as well. I know Belgium and Great Britain are of course very cycling heavy, very attuned with the sport of riding bikes, and France is as well, and Italy. The dominance is clear at the moment. I hope to see some more young Americans picking it up as well. I just think it falls on national programs to have that growth. So
Totally. Yeah, and I think normally when a nation hosts the Olympics, they put a lot of investment into their sports. Obviously, they tend to pick some sports over others. You know, I'm sure the track will see a lot of success in the US in particular, swimming, but I would love to see some big cycling names up there, like both on the velodrome, but also on road, mountain, all the disciplines. There's a couple of men's names that we could talk about, but in terms of women, I would love to see some more women that are highlighted in the lead up to LA 2028. I mean, we, in the last Olympics, Kristen Faulkner won the women's road race, and she kind of picked up cycling literally in the last couple of years over COVID. She was like an investment banker, I believe, before then, and started riding her bike in the way that a lot of people generally do, where it's like, cool, this is an opportunity for me to keep fit, but also have a hobby and kind of have that alongside your day job to stay healthy both mentally and physically. Yeah, it was cool that I think it was inspiring that she hadn't been riding that long. She had literally been on local races within a couple of years, and then she did get called up to the US team quite last minute. But still, the fact that she then went on to take gold, and in such, like, it was quite a dominant form as well. So I would love to see more opportunities
yeah.
like that from the US team, and I will be watching closely there.
I think we're going to keep seeing meteoric rise for star athletes in general, from especially from the women's side. It's very young in investment right now into the sport, right? We're seeing bigger backers, which is amazing. They're starting This is just the starting point for them to be getting paid living wages and then some. It's not done. For sure, it's not done. There has to be more investment into it to make it a better product, to make the athletes' lives better because they are pro athletes. But, seeing riders like Rosa Closer, she won Unbound last year as a privateer, and she continues to be a privateer. But this year, she signed a contract with Canyon SRAM
Yep.
to race for the World Tour team, and I think she did her first set of road races. I think one of the points that Tom Dumoulin was making may or may not have been lost in translation. Of course, he was probably speaking Dutch. Um, it's that within the last 5 years, we cannot expect for the racing quality across nations to be equal just yet. And that is why we're seeing Dutch dominance. That Dutch dominance shouldn't stop countries from, like, it shouldn't stop young athletes from other countries pursuing that level of greatness. If the Netherlands is the only dominant space, then the sport will probably just stay in that bubble. But what we need to grow women's cycling is to have it be globally accepted as one of the premier endurance athlete jobs, you know?
Yep.
At the end of the day, as well, a lot of the pro men also don't get paid all that much. There's only what, like 10 athletes who have $1 million contracts and then some. The investment into the sport isn't equal, but pro cycling is not a sport that you can really live off for a long time in general. And I think the sport itself needs to get better investment overall, women included, in order to make the landscape better. So, speaking of contracts and Dutch women, uh, Marianne Vos signed a career-long contract with Visma Lease a Bike. She's been with them for a while, right? Is this contract news old news? Am I just hearing about this? Did that happen recently?
I kind of added this to the show notes because this week Mads Pedersen signed a lifetime contract with Trek. And this was something that Marianne Voss did a couple of months ago, I think it was now. But it's interesting to see that these career long contracts are starting to become a thing. So I don't know how much longer Mads Pedersen is planning to ride and race. Obviously, he's still performing at the high end. He's won multiple stages this Giro already, but I'm sure there's many years left of
Oh,
him
I
racing bikes. But it's just a very interesting move. The fact that he's been with Trek a number of years. I need to double check exactly how many, but at least since 2018, 2019, absolutely, when he won the 2019 World Road Championships, which were in Harrogate, and I got to see him cross the finish line there, which was super cool. But it's just such an interesting move. I mean, Trek are one of the biggest cycling pro teams out there, so it's a pretty safe decision and safe agreement to do. I would be very surprised if we saw these decisions from some of the smaller teams, because we've seen a lot of kind of fluctuation and uncertainty from those smaller teams, where the teams have maybe very sadly folded or had to call out for so that they can continue into the next year. We're talking about how sponsorship in cycling is tough, but it's just been super interesting. I think maybe WoW also signed a very similar contract with Jumbo. So I guess it's strengthening these teams, strengthening these relationships. And if they're superstars in the sport now, they probably will continue to be in the next couple of years. We're talking about
yeah.
how people aren't getting paid much to ride bikes. But if a rider has that promise or that certainty of, hey, until you decide to not ride bikes anymore, we have your back, that must feel pretty cool.
I mean, Mass silently is the best cyclist in the world tour if Tade and Matthew Van Der Poel weren't in the picture.
That's a big
You know,
if, but
like
yeah, it's
he's
true.
on every podium. It's a big if, but I think he is the best. So it doesn't surprise me in the least. We spoke briefly about Wout van Aert and his struggles, but he had a lifetime contract prior. He was legitimately the most exciting cyclist to watch for a couple of year span there. His Tour de France run, getting the green jersey and such was, I don't think I've ever seen a greater performance out of anyone. But Mass is quietly amassing win after win after win, season over season, since getting that limelight on him with the World Championship stripes. He and his lead out companion at this current Giro d'Italia, at this stage of where we're recording it, they seem unstoppable. Him and Matthias Vasek, speaking of like super young, promising superstars, Vasek, I think 3 years ago was the U23 under 23 silver medalist. So that was Wollongong in Australia, the world champs. He lost out to I see. I don't even remember the name of the winner, but he's taking he's taking Mass to every win. He's his lead out guy, and he's absolutely crushing it. Um, so does Trek just have the formula for getting the best lead out men, the best sprinters right now? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Pretty incredible to watch them going.
yeah, definitely a rider to watch. Absolutely.
Moving on from the world tour because we've been going on about it for a little bit now. We should talk about the things that are happening around us on the larger scale. Speaking of, American investment into the sport, Unbound is coming up. It's coming up at the end of May, first weekend of June, or the last weekend of May into June. It's going to be in Emporia, Kansas, as usual. I don't think we really have any notes or specific talking points, but it is great to hear that it's going to be going on. It's a lifetime event once again. I'm sure if anyone's going, maybe we'll see each other there. I may or may not be going, haven't decided yet. At the same weekend here in LA, the LA Invitational is coming up on May 31st. happening out of the Cub House in San Marino, South Pasadena. So yeah, the three versions, they're single scoop, double scoop, triple scoop, 24 miles, 38 miles, 55 miles with varying degrees of elevation. I imagine it's going to be hot as well
Yeah,
because of the kind of roads that are being taken advantage of on this. Um, I'm excited for the car show and the swap meet, to be quite honest. I haven't been going for the last couple of years that I've been here, and I really want to go. It's one of the biggest events here on the east side as far as riding, so it'll be cool to go. Keep an eye out for that. We'll drop links for that in the description.
I couldn't make the ride last year, but I went to the car show swap meet, and it was a really really good vibe. I brought a friend who isn't isn't a cyclist, and she really enjoyed the vibes. Just she actually bought like a vintage Evian cycling jersey. It looks sick. It was cool to like bring that super cool cars as well. And yeah, I think if I'm around, I should probably bring some stuff to swap or sell, because I have a box of stuff that I've been meaning to put on eBay and just haven't got around to it. And it would be a lot easier if people take it off my hands. So maybe I'll see you there. Come buy my
True.
things.
So that's an LA staple. Uh, we'll head into the staples section from there. Um, what have you been getting up to on the bike, Lucy? What's been going on?
Well, we did a ride to our podcast point on Saturday, which was honestly a little bit of a struggle for me because I was mildly hungover accidentally, but it was still really good to get out.
Accidentally.
Yeah, it wasn't planned. It was just a lack of food the night before. Yeah, it was amazing, amazing weather, super nice. I just rolled in my t-shirt. It was a proper like LA summer hairdryer air sort of ride. Super fun to get out and
Brutally
about.
hot.
The ride back home was also a struggle.
I don't think we noticed, but it was 100 degrees.
Damn, that is hot. Francis and I struggled back to get to the west side, and he was like, I think I might need to stop at your house and have a can of Coke and some snacks before he then rode back to where he is. So that was pretty funny. Other than that, I did an early
Yeah,
morning beach ride, which was super nice. It's been a little while since I've done like a super early ride like that. It was nice and fun. And then yesterday I did an afternoon ride that we were meant to head up Franklin again, but there was a couple of things that happened, a couple of moving parts. I rode with Francis and our good friend Giles, and then I also rode with Mo, who I had met once before but never ridden bikes together. He's an actor. If you've seen Ted Lasso, he plays the goalkeeper in Ted Lasso. He's super fun. He's super strong on the bike. It was just good to hang out with those guys. Nothing super crazy, but it's just been nice to like keep the consistency of riding again, and super happy with that. I think it's time, or nearly time though, to give my bike a bit of a refresh. I've had my bike 3-ish, maybe over 3 years, and I love it. I really don't look at other bikes and think, oh yeah, I want that, or like, oh, it's time for a new bike. But I think it might be time to give it a little bit of love and give it a bit of a refresh. I'm thinking about putting the integrated BlackHeart, which is the brand. They have like an integrated bar and stem, and it's carbon, and I'm thinking about switching my standard bar and stem to that. I think it would just make the bike look a bit different aesthetically. I mean, the bar tape definitely needs some love. Maybe some new tires. I looked at them yesterday after the ride, and there's definitely some little holes and bits and bobs starting to appear. Maybe I'll switch it up and put on a new group set. I might switch it to SRAM. I might change things up a bit there, so we'll see. That's the
I'm not mad at
beauty.
that at all. I
That's
love
the
my SRAM group set.
that's the beauty of bikes, is you can basically change it up however often you like, and it can feel very very different. So
If the means allow.
yeah,
If the means allow,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. switch everything up. Not everything is super modular, not everything is very straightforward, but when you already have a modern road bike, the evolutionary upgrades that you can make are pretty straightforward. I'm actually giving my homie a little upgrade. I have another set of Hunt wheels with carbon spokes, but it's got the older free hub body on there. I just need it's set up for SRAM at the moment because it came off of my bike. I'm going to be giving it to somebody who's using Shimano at the moment, so I needed to ask the Hunt people to send me a free hub body. Gonna swap that on and then upgrade his bike to go from some pretty nice wheels to much nicer wheels. So
Nice.
everyone's making upgrades. Everyone is making upgrades. It's cool. I think I need to refresh my bike a little bit as well. I haven't been riding too much these last couple weeks. Obviously, I'm busy moving house. Um, all my stuff is in different places. But when I did ride, it was with you and Francis, and that was fabulous. That was a good day. We did Franklin up to Tree People, recorded the podcast, sat in the shade, and then dropped down Benedict Canyon. And it feels so good when that road is empty and you can just fly down it. But I never seem to notice those laser monkeys that are on the side of the road there.
Yeah, Francis pointed them out,
Have
right?
you've noticed them, right? He made it a point to have me catch that.
Yeah, I think I only noticed them because Francis pointed them out to me. It's like right at the bottom. Basically, you finished the climb and you're on the flat, and there's like a river bed on the right hand side, and then they have like these red laser eyes. It's pretty scary. Next time you ride down or up, check it out.
Another ride I did, my normal staple ride on a weekend. It's one of my favorites. I feel like I mention it on every episode that we do. I'd be remiss to not mention that I did taco this past week. Did it in a t-shirt. Rode chill for once. My definition of chill, not everyone else's definition of chill. But there were a ton of new faces on the ride, and as usual, no tacos were consumed, which is the way we like it
It's
on
false
Taco Ride.
advertising.
If you haven't done it, it is not false advertising. It's just called taco. There's no promise of food, although we do always end at a cafe in Highland Park called Collage Coffee. Shout out to the Collage Coffee people. They're always taking care of us on Sundays. The timing for the ride is now officially on summer hours. So if you're interested in joining the taco ride, it meets up at 8 to 8:15, rolls out 8:20, 8:30. So try to be there before 8:15 so you don't miss the rollout. Uh, it's in I guess it's Glendale, Burbank area, just the north side of Griffith Park, Sonora and Garden. Um, Big crew led by Colton and Jasmine, the homies. Always a great time. Really, really fun. Attacks happen. It's a social ride where the attacks happen. And Andrick actually just came out with a video on his YouTube channel, Shreddy Pendergrass, talking about branded group rides and how those things are dead. But there are still group rides that exist in general. There's always false advertising of it being a social pace, and then people start throwing attacks, and that kind of ruins it. This is one of those rides where there are attacks, but it doesn't ruin the social pace. It's a contrary example to that. So I highly recommend. It is fun for people of all ages and all skill levels. Not too challenging. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Speaking of group rides as well, there is the next Luft X Map Women's Ride Series that just was announced. I'm
beautiful.
just double checking the date now so I can say the correct one. It's May 25th, which is, I believe, let me make sure.
This
May
coming
25th,
weekend,
which is a Sunday. So not.
next weekend,
Yes, well, it will be this coming weekend if people are listening to the podcast next Wednesday. So, Sunday, the 25th
when this
of
releases,
May.
correct.
Yes, there will be two routes, a spicy route and a mild route. The spicy route is only 43k and the mild route is only 30k, so still very manageable, fun distances. And I think even with that, there will be a couple of groups that it naturally splits off into as well. So we will look after you. It's meeting at 7:30 a.m. at Luft on Lincoln in Venice, rolling out at 8, and then after the ride, there is snacks, mimosas, coffee. The pastries are provided by a local place down the road from me called Bread and Butter, and it's an incredible bakery. It's probably hurting my bank account way too much, but their pastries are so good. So, yeah, if you identify as a woman, please come along, please join. I will put a link in the description for this podcast. Yeah, please come along. I would love to see you. We have some wonderful ride leaders, and it's going to be super fun.
Amazing. That about takes care of the staples section. I think we should move on to transplant talk. Not necessarily cycling related, but sometimes cycling related. Big things that happened in our hometowns, or things that happen outside of cycling. Something that did happen within cycling, highlighting a female rider, uh, in my hometown, the TD Five Borough Bike Tour, the annual ride, 40-ish mile ride around New York City, always seems to be a rainy one. My friend, my big sis, Jenny Paris Tan, was the face of the event. She seems to be a spokesperson for the event every year, which is amazing that she gets that shine. It's awesome to see her platform being used to highlight the event because she is a Filipino woman. She's putting on for the rest of us Filipinos. The representation in my hometown means a lot to me, and I love seeing familiar faces who really do ride and enjoy and love the sport, inspiring other people to enjoy such a big event. Um, I do think that this is an aside and this is a personal comment, not an attack on anyone, but I think the TD5 Borough Bike Tour is a bit of a funny event, um, because they make you wear, and this might be something just in all New York events for some reason. They make you wear a specific jersey or jersey cover. And I think they also make you wear a helmet cover.
Yeah, they look like
Um,
shower
it's,
caps.
yeah, they look like shower caps, and you're kind of required to wear them. It's not the only event that I've seen do that. There's also a big UCI Gran Fondo in New York, called Gran Fondo New York. I think it was the Gran Fondo World Championships at one point, and I don't really see the point in having a Gran Fondo World Championship, but I've never done a Fondo of any type, so that might be irrelevant. But they also make you do that there. They make you purchase a green Gran Fondo New York jersey, and I believe a helmet cover. I don't know why. I don't see anyone else doing that. I personally want a little bit of individuality when I show up to these events. I want to wear my own kit, and I definitely don't want to wear a shower cap. It's my
On
politics.
on one level, it gives it's kind of a cool image if you have thousands of people all wearing the same stuff. Like it does look cool and uniform. However, I personally don't love the Grand Fondo New York colors and design, or even the Five Borough Bike Tour. And surely, like the shower cap helmet cover thing. I mean, if it's raining, cool. Like in England, you can buy like a reflective helmet cover, and it's meant to be added safety if you're commuting and it's dark or poor visibility due to weather. But if it's and like you said, this version of this year's race was rainy, like cool means that my hair doesn't get wet or you don't get soaked. However, if it's a hot day, surely you're just gonna boil, and that is not practical.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think I like individuality as well, expressing myself by what I wear on the bike too. Some days more than others, but it is a very interesting choice to have thousands of people, you're to make people wear. I get it's nice to have an event specific jersey or kit or accessories. That's cool if people want to celebrate this event that they've been training and working towards for months. But the fact that it's regulated and also the like helmet cover shower cap thing, maybe it's a requirement for New York specifically. Yeah, interesting choice.
maybe. Speaking of New York, the Knicks are doing quite well. They lost yesterday, but they have a chance to go to the Eastern Conference Finals versus the heated rivals, the Indiana Pacers. I'm really looking forward to this. It's very unlikely that they're going to lose any more games to the Celtics. Really hope they don't. I'm never going to hear the end of it from people if they do, especially now that I'm talking about it on the podcast. But let's go Knicks, go New York, go New York, go. So WNBA has some things going on. I think you put some notes. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about the Lakers. I don't actually watch the NBA that closely, but I know that the Lakers exited very swiftly. So there's no need to dwell on that. However, one thing I did want to mention that, yeah, isn't bike related, but related to the basketball and WNBA is the fact that, so the WNBA just had their draft a couple weeks ago now, I think it was, and their season kicks off maybe next week. They've had a couple of preseason games, which have been cool. The Sparks won their first one against the Valkyries. Valkyries, super exciting team. They're brand new for this year. They are the San Francisco team. So excited to watch them this season. Still happy that the Sparks won that game by 1 point. But one thing I wanted to highlight that is really frustrating to me is basically the size of these teams. There's been a lot of social media posts since the draft waving some players that they literally drafted, especially in the first round. You had Caitlin Chan, who was part of the winning Yukon team with Paige Beckers, and I was super excited. She went to the Valkyries. She's an incredibly talented player. There's a crazy fact that her jersey or her merch was one of the best-selling jerseys as of the last couple of weeks since she got drafted. And in the last day or two, they put out a social media post saying that they waived her from the roster, meaning she no longer plays for them. She didn't make it to the actual season. And there's been a couple of other people like that that I've been really
Hmm.
surprised at. There was a UNC player that was drafted to the Sparks. My partner went to UNC, so I'm a big North Carolina fan. Was excited to see that she got drafted. A couple of other friends I have in LA, they also went to UNC, so we were saying like, excited to see her play this season. But she also got waived. Surely there's a better way, better structure to this. Maybe the teams need to be bigger, but like, what's the point in having a draft if half of these players, I don't know the actual numbers, but if one of the best players in the winning team from the NCAA final gets waived weeks after she got drafted? I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but as you can tell, it really fucking annoyed me.
No, I mean, I see why it would be annoying. I wonder what happened to make those decisions for those teams. I feel like it does happen in a lot of sports. Like being drafted isn't necessarily a guarantee that you're going to be on the team in any capacity, right? Like you still have to try out afterwards to make it to the main roster, and being waived, of course, is really it's really annoying because I think in the NBA at least, you have the chance to be put on like a two-way contract, right? Or a G League contract. You get drafted and then you get put into the G League for development, right? Or in the MLB, you get drafted into a team's farm system. You don't get drafted
To
to
the
the
team.
major league team. Um, I'm not sure if there I'm not sure if there's an equivalent in the WNBA yet for that kind of minor league system, you could say. I think there was a big hurrah about alternative leagues because the WNBA season is so short compared to, the NBA season, that the athletes still need to make their income in other ways, and they want to be improving their craft and playing against really skilled athletes. So there was that. Do you know the name of that 3-on-3 league
Yeah, unrivaled.
that women ballers were doing? Unrivaled. Yeah. Maybe that would have been a better spot for some of these waived athletes that we're talking about, if that was an official wing of the WNBA. But I
I,
don't know. It's too fresh.
Yeah, I mean, Unrivaled happens at a different time to the WNBA, so you have a lot of WNBA players playing in Unrivaled as well.
Exactly.
I mean, the hope is they will get drafted to another team, but why have this celebration? And I think it's just even before the season starts, they're like, okay, thank you, bye. Maybe there's a transfer window or a shakeup quarter of the way through the season, a third of the way through the season, halfway through the season, and maybe that's a more applicable, appropriate place for that to happen rather than before they've played any games. They go from the college finals, they have their March Madness tournament, and then like 2 weeks after that, not even, I don't think, that's when they have the draft. And then less than a month after that, that's when they go into playing the games. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. And I don't necessarily have any answers right now, but something needs to change there, in my opinion. So I will be keeping a close eye on that. But I'm very excited for the WNBA season to get started. I will be keeping a close eye on what's happening.
You've got Sparks opening day tickets?
I don't currently. I think their first game is at the Valkyries again, which is an away game. I don't currently have
Mm,
tickets, but I might before game one. I do have Sparks' first Dallas Wings tickets, so Paige Becker's in LA.
mm,
I already have those locked in. Very excited for that game.
amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely want to catch that. LA Sparks season tickets, I've heard, are actually quite affordable if you are the kind of person to hedge your bets on getting season tickets.
If you are in or near a
Yeah.
city with a WNBA team, go to a game. Try it. It's a good vibe. The ones in LA are anyway, and it looks like the ones in other places are too. So it's an exciting moment to
Yep.
be watching that.
I really want to go home to New York and watch a Liberty game. That would be really fun. I've seen a couple when I was growing up, but obviously the league has expanded and changed
The reigning
and
champions.
since I've seen that. I was watching the Liberty. Yeah, I watched the Liberty back when they were in Madison Square Garden. They now have shifted and they play in Brooklyn, which if you know anything about me, I'm not the biggest fan of Brooklyn as a Queens native. But I would go and catch them at the Barclays. That would be really cool. Yeah, reigning champions, like you said, be sick. Maybe we go to a Liberty versus Sparks game.
Yeah,
Let's put that on the books.
I'm in. I'm in.
Here.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think that takes care of it. I think that's the episode for today, y'all. What do you think, Lucy? Anything else you needed to chat about?
No, honestly, I think that is it. This episode is going to be a good length. I think there's a lot of nice and juicy bits in there. We hopefully have next week's
Hmm.
guest already lined up, so I'm excited. As always, if you have any feedback or
Potentially a
questions,
true LA native.
yeah, potentially. Fingers crossed we can work it out. Yeah, if anyone has any comments, questions, topics you want us to cover, whether it's cycling probably or WNBA or NBA or anything else that you think we might be interested in talking about, drop us a
Hot
message.
takes.
Hot takes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we maybe have, I think we could do an episode solely dedicated to hot takes one time. So if you have any ideas for that, let us know. Thank you for listening or watching. Last week's episode actually was the first video version that we put out on Spotify. So let us know what you thought of that. That was the one we filmed with Francis Cade outside at Tree People. That was nice and glorious in the sunshine. Other than that, yeah, tune in next week for our guest, mysterious guest. We will catch you soon.
Cool. Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in.